Well, good morning. It is Friday, January 19th, 2024 AD, and God put it on my heart this morning to try to make a tutorial on how to make one of our Christian neck scarves. By way of introduction, my name is Dawn Slike, and I live in northeastern Ohio in the United States. I'm coming up on my 70th birthday, and I thought, well, you know what? It's time to make a video. It's time to show other people who are already experienced knitters how to make a Christian neck scarf. We've made several hundred of these. I have two partners, Diane and Chrissy. We're in our 10th year. And for at least the last 5 or 6 years, we've donated all of our money from the sales of these scarves to 2 local women's centers who help pregnant women before and after childbirth. And it's a real good project in the sense that it's good for our souls, donating the money. It's good for the agencies that we're supporting. The scarves that we make are always complimented for their beauty, and I thought, well, we need to share this with the whole world because they're Christian scarves and they have a Christian pattern. I wanted to put these yarns on my lap so you could see what I'm using today. I'm blending this very thin sparkly yarn, which is variegated in different shades of blue and a little periwinkle in there, and blending it with a very soft vintage 4-ply acrylic. So I like to blend things together to come up with a new color, and I'm really thrilled with this, and that's why I thought, well, today's the day I'm going to make a tutorial. I'm going to show you what I'm making, and then we're going to talk about how I'm making it. In our pattern, we have 3 elements. We have crosses that run down the center to keep Jesus at the center of our lives. And we have seed stitches, which are symbolic of the seed that Jesus plants within our hearts to share his good news of salvation, mercy, and forgiveness. And we have braided cables. Now, these braided cables symbolize the integrated continuity of the Holy Trinity. The 3 strands in the braided cables represent the Holy Trinity. And then we have a very lovely finish on the edge, which Chrissy brought into our pattern. The beauty of our pattern is, even though I came up with this pattern in 2014, we have had it evolve a lot and made better and made better. This is going to be a fringeless scarf. It has ribbing, double ribbing on the ends. It will have double ribbing on the other end as well. And that saves me time not putting fringe on. I'm knitting this scarf on size 10.5 needles because that's what feels good. It keeps it fluid, and it's soft and fluid, but it's not so lacy that you can see through it. It's going to be a nice warm scarf, but not bulky. I really love how this variegated sparkly yarn, which is very thin, plays color-wise with this solid medium blue yarn. It's really breathtaking. I love playing with colors, but I'm especially fond of blues. I'm Roman Catholic, and I have a lot of blue yarn because we like to honor Mother Mary, and blue is her color. So I'm excited about this particular scarf. I've never made this kind of a scarf before with these 2 yarns. But I'm going to walk you through how this goes. Hopefully you'll be inspired and want to learn how to make these. There's 3 elements, as I said. You've got your crosses in the middle, your seed stitches, and your braided cables. This particular scarf is a 30 stitch pattern. So we're starting with a finished stitch on the edge, followed by a single column of seed stitches, and then we have the 6 stitches of braided cable, 3 stitches of seed stitch. A panel of crosses is 8 stitches because you have 6 stitches across at the widest part, which is the cross beam, and then you have 2 stitches worth of the actual cross, the main body of the cross, in the center. So you have 6 stitches of a cross and then a solitary stockinette on each end. And then it goes backwards from there, and you have 3 more stitches of seed, 6 more stitches of cable, which is a braided cable, and a single column of seed stitch, and then the finish edge over here. So what I have going on with this scarf is you've got 12 rows of the cross, and where we tweak this pattern in order to change the length of the cross is in the panels between the crosses. So on this, I wanted it to be at least 5 feet long. We like our scarves to be long so that they can wrap around twice, or you can do that loopy thing where you're pulling both ends of your scarf through a loop around your neck, and that adds bulk to it. If it's especially cold, you like to do that. So we make our scarves at least 5 feet long, unless someone special orders it to be shorter, and unless it's a child's scarf. We do make toddler scarves and child scarves in 3-foot lengths, 4-foot lengths, 4.5 feet. We will special order. We will take special orders and make you anything you want. But when we're selling these at craft shows, we generally stick to, for the adults, 5 foot, 5.5, sometimes 6 foot, sometimes 6.5, depending on how poorly we calculated how long that scarf was going to end up being. Sometimes the weight of the scarf will make it stretch and become longer, but that's not a problem for us. And when we label our scarves at craft shows, we always put it on the label how long it is so people have an idea what they're dealing with. A lot of people buy our scarves to give as gifts for their children, grandchildren at Christmas time, or their friends. And of course, nobody needs just one scarf. You have to have several different colors in order to feel well dressed. We have some repeat customers. We love what we do. People love what we do. And we try to make them perfect. We try not to have any flaws in these. And we're all perfectionists, and we generally tend to rip it out and do it over if we find a mistake. So you're going to get a beautiful product when you buy one of our scarves. But this isn't about buying scarves. This is about showing you how to make them. So if you already know how to make braided cables and seed stitches and stockinette and work a design in pearl against the stockinette, and you know how to do these edgings, you're already in good shape. Again, this is a 30 stitch pattern because the seed stitches are 3 here and 3 here. That's what makes this a 30 stitch pattern. If you needed to make this wider because of whatever reason, if you might want to make it a little bit wider, you could turn this into a 5 stitch seed on both sides and add about 3/4 of an inch in width to this. I go with odd numbers on the seed stitch because when I flip it over, I do exactly the same thing. I when I'm going off my cable and into the seed, I'm starting with a purl, and then I go purl, knit, purl, and then when I'm on the other side, I have the same thing, purl, knit, purl. That produces my seed. When you go with an even number, you have to remember you're on the back and then start with knit instead of purl. I try to avoid that. So my patterns are 26 stitches where you have a single column of seed here, or 3 stitch or 5 stitch or even 7, depending on how fine the yarn is, or how wide you want it. You might want it extra wide. I just recently made a very wide scarf for a woman overseas who has a very cold climate in the wintertime, and she wanted extra bulk. So her scarf ended up being 49 stitches instead of my usual 26 or 30. It took a long time to make her scarf, but she's very happy with it, and she wanted it 7 feet long. So she has something I might never make again. It was enormous, but she absolutely loves it. Back to my story here. I'm going to start knitting again. I'm on the back side of this scarf, and I'm going to just work, and as I'm working, I hope to be able to talk you through it. Right now I'm working on the back side and finishing up a cross. So because I've made so many of this, I know where I'm at, and I also have really good lighting overhead. When I'm making a dark scarf, I must have very good lighting, but this isn't dark, but I still need overhead lighting. This was the back side of a crossbeam, and that's only 2 rows. So there's the 6 stitches of the knit stitches on the back side of this cross, and then I'm going back into the rest of the pattern. So I have the end of the panel where the crosses lie, and then I have my seed stitch, which is purl, knit, purl. And then I have the 6 stitches of cable. The back side of that is just purls. And then I do a seed here, which is always purl stitch. This is the way I make it. Some people don't want to do it this way, but they might want to make just knit stitches there, but I choose to go purl. And then the last stitch, this is the edging. Chrissy taught us how to do this. She said her mother taught her when she was very young, and this is how you get a very pretty, lacy, finished edge. Instead of just ending with whatever you're ending with, you have this edge. And what you do is you bring your yarn forward and just slip this stitch onto your needle, and then you flip it over to start your next row, and you knit it using the yarn in the back, and you loop that through. I have 2 strands going here, so I got to make sure I don't catch it the wrong way. And now I have my first stitch on the next row, and if you look at the side, you're creating a nice pretty series of loops. If you always have to do it the same direction, it is a knit stitch, but your yarn is already in the back. And I think this is absolutely beautiful what Chrissy taught us how to do. And we're now both, Diane and I adopted this and are finishing our scarves with this pretty edging. It just adds more elegance to what we're doing. Okay, so the next stitch, the second stitch, is the single column of seed. So I'm just purling that stitch. Now I'm going to start my cables. And I don't know the terminology. Please forgive me if I'm saying things with the wrong terminology. I'm not a professional knitter, but I'm going to say it the way I normally say it, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm saying. So I have a cabling needle, which is a godsend. You take the short end, Slip it in from the right to the first 2 stitches. That's on this part of the cable. This is the beginning part of the cable, which is cable front. Then you knit the next 2 stitches. Then you flip up your cabling needle and knit off of that needle. You knit those 2 stitches. And then you knit the last 2 stitches, and there is your 6 stitches of cable. Then we go into the 3-stitch seed pattern, purl, knit, purl. Now I'm beginning the cross panel, and which is only 8 stitches. So I knit my first stitch like I always do. Now we've already made the cross beam, so we only have 2 more rows to finish this cross. The crosses are usually 12 rows. I will tweak that if I think the bottom of the cross is too short. And on my toddler scarves, which are only 3 feet long, I don't even bother making them 12 rows. I make them only 10 rows, and I make the bottom part 6 rows, and there's shorter crosses for children. I also don't do 12 crosses. I forgot to mention that. The 12 crosses are symbolic of the 12 apostles. And on a toddler scarf, I will make, because I want to make it shorter anyway, I'm making the crosses smaller, and I'm only giving them 10 crosses to keep it short, and shortening the amount of stockinette between my crosses. The 10 crosses represent the 10 commandments. So, anyway, we're going to finish this cross by knitting above the first 2 parts of the cross beam. 1, 2. Then we continue the top of the cross, purl 2. Then we knit the last 3 stitches. And that's that. Now we're moving into another 3-stitch seed, purl, knit, purl. And now we're going to do the last cable. There's a cable on each side. Again, slipping the short end of our cabling needle in from the right, knitting the next 2 stitches, knitting the 2 stitches on the cabling needle. You pull it up and you turn it up and use it like a needle, which it is. And then knitting the last 2 stitches of this cable. Then you're on your last 2 stitches of the row. You purl that single column of seed stitch, and then again you leave your yarn in the front and slip the stitch on the end so that you can flip this over and start the back row. Now the back row is super easy because it's mostly purl stitches. You're only having to navigate the seed areas, the cross area, and then the loopy edging. So here we go. You're slipping your needle in to do the edging, picking up that yarn that was left on the other side and knitting that. Now you have your edge. Purl your single column seed. Okay, now we're purling 6, and it's good to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm double stranding. I'm using a thin, glittery, variegated yarn with a regular 4-ply acrylic. Because I'm double stranding, I don't want to miss one of those strands. I don't want to accidentally drop my thin yarn. So it takes a little longer when I'm grabbing the stitch to knit it or purl it to make sure I have both strands. I don't mind doing that because I make such beautiful things when I'm blending 2 yarns together. I absolutely love this. I love the sparkle. I love the blue variegated. I love that we added a darker periwinkle in with this. I absolutely love this blending of blues, and I hope you do too. But we make every color in the rainbow. I mean, it's limitless what we can do, and you too. So I've made my 6 stitches of cable on the back side. Now I have the 3 stitches of seed, purl, knit, purl, just like on the front. I just think it's so much easier to keep it an odd number of seed stitches so you can do both sides the same way. And now we have 3 stitches of purl. This is the 12th of 12 rows of cross. And then we're knitting the top 2 stitches of the cross. This is the very last part of the cross. 3 more stitches of purl. That completes the cross in this panel. And I think this is the 4th cross. Yes, we have 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th cross of 12 crosses. And I'll show you how that changes a little bit later. We don't just make 12 crosses, but when we get to the center after 6 crosses, which is half of 12, we add extra stockinette stitches in the middle because we're going to change the direction of the crosses on the other half so that if you were to drape your scarf from the neck, all your crosses would be hanging the same direction. And all that means for experienced knitters is, instead of starting with 8 rows of purls to make the bottom of the cross, you're going to do 2 rows of purls, and then your crossbeam is going to be next, and then you have 8 rows of purls. It's a very cool thing. And we've had a lot of people tell us they appreciate our attention to that kind of detail. But we make it longer, so in the middle between the crosses, when we get to the center, we make it longer in the stockinette panel so that when it reverses, our cross beams are the same distance apart, so we have to add 6 stitches to whatever we have going on right now. We add 6 stitches in the center, and then the cross beams will be the same distance apart on the other half that they are on this half. And maybe I'll add that part of the scarf to this tutorial so you can see the difference and the different direction and how easy it is to flip that around. Okay, by the way, I'm knitting kind of relaxed and slow, and I'm double stranding, so I don't stress over how long it takes me to make this, but generally speaking, it takes 5 minutes for me to make 2 rows. So this is about, without the fringe, this is about a 13-hour project. And I try, unless I'm pressed for time because someone needs a fast order, I normally take about 2 or 3 days and relax and make my scarves while I'm watching television or listening to a documentary or an interview on my internet. So I try not to stress, I try not to rush, because rushing tends to cause me to make mistakes, and I do not want to do that. So I hope you like what you're seeing so far, And I want you to feel free to leave questions in the comments, and I will try to answer your questions. My goal here is to inspire people to want to learn how to make these. You can do whatever you want with your scarves. You can make them for family members. You can do what we do and sell them and donate the proceeds. By the way, we do not charge a lot for our scarves because most people don't feel they need another scarf. However, we're the only people in the world that are making these right now, and you have to have the patience to want to do this. I think it's worth the time because they are absolutely gorgeous when you're done. And hopefully other women will share the love of Jesus Christ by making these and wrapping these scarves around their little ones, their grandchildren, for Christmas or for birthdays. Another thing that we do with our scarves after we're finished making them and writing up a detailed description of what we've made, we do include flyers with these, which gives washing and drying instructions, what kind of materials we use to make our scarves. We just really would like to see more women make these and share Jesus. We also bless these with holy water. All three of us in Christian neck scarves are Roman Catholic, and we all appreciate the value of blessing these with holy water. It adds extra protection to the person who is wearing the scarf. There's a special prayer that we include with the package. And this scarf is going to be at least 5 feet long, possibly 5.5 feet long. And we made a decision a couple years ago to sell all of our sparkly scarves that are mostly acrylic. There's no wool in this. All of our sparkly scarves are selling for $20. We feel that's a very reasonable price for 12 or 13 or 14 hours work and getting something this beautiful. We think it's very reasonable, but a lot of people buy them just because they know we're donating all the money to these very, very good, very deserving women's centers that we're supporting. So it's a win-win-win everywhere you go on this project. We're very proud of what we do. It's not the kind of pride that makes us feel puffy. It's the kind of pride that makes us feel satisfied that we're honoring God in this way, using our gifts to make something pretty, make something other people love. These will last you a lifetime if you take care of them. If you avoid zippers, if you avoid hooks, if you wash it in the washer by itself or with clothing that don't have zippers or hooks, this will last you a lifetime if you take care of it. So I'm going to end this video for now, and if I get to the point where I'm going to flip the crosses, I will add more to the video. God bless you. So I just reviewed the first part of this video, which is about half an hour long. I was surprised how long I was talking, and realized I left out a couple things, so I'm going to go over that right now. I forgot to tell you on this scarf how many rows of stockinette in the center panel I was knitting between the crosses. And on this scarf, it's 14 rows of stockinette, and then when we get to the center, after the 6th cross, I'm going to be knitting 20 rows of stockinette just at the center, just at the neck, and then flipping the crosses the other direction and going back to, after the 7th cross, which is going the other direction, after that 7th cross we'll go back to 14 rows of stockinettes between the crosses. So we have a nice even flow of crosses where all of the cross beams are equidistant. And I'm going to include that in this tutorial when I get to that point. That's a couple hours away because I'm just beginning the 14 rows of stockinette after the 4th cross. I have 2 more crosses to make before I can do the center panel of 20 rows of stockinette. So I'll be adding that to this tutorial as well. I'm talking and not remembering what I'm doing, so I'm going to stop talking for a minute. So in the last brief segment, I didn't complete my row because I found a mistake. And the mistake was that my cable didn't match my first cable. My second cable was not in the same sequence as my first cable, and I had to stop the video, figure out where I made my mistake, and I actually finally figured out how I make that mistake. How do I get my cables misaligned? Well, I finally figured out how it happened. I had to stop the camera and realized when I don't finish a row and lay my needles down on the floor with my work and I am in the middle of a row, I sometimes accidentally pick it up and go the wrong direction. And what that did in my case was added stitches where they didn't belong to the cable, and it threw everything off. And now I know why I have such a hard time finding my mistakes, because you really can't see the mistake if you're just adding stitches in the wrong place on one row. And that's what I did. And when I ripped out, I followed my cables with my fingers going up the 2 columns of cables and figured out this just happened, and it just happened before I started recording the second segment of this video tutorial. And so I only had to rip out 4 rows, which was good. I didn't have to go back too terribly far. And that's why the last row wasn't finished, because I couldn't finish it. I found a mistake. So it was worth mentioning all that to you to demonstrate that I do make mistakes. That's the first point. But it was avoidable. It was an avoidable mistake because I was too in a hurry to complete my row, and I threw my work down on the floor before finishing the row I was working on, and that's what led to the wasted time of making a mistake and then having to rip out the mistake and do it over. So my friend Chrissy, who's a much more experienced knitter than I am, always makes a point of reminding me it's always good to finish the row that you're working on. Well, now I know how that can be extremely disruptive to the work in my pattern for Christian neck scarves. I do not want my cables to be misaligned. I want them to be the same on the left and on the right. I'm kind of picky like that, and I could have left that mistake in, but it would have bugged me for the rest of this scarf, which is 8 more crosses. It would have bugged me. I would have been able to navigate it just fine, but it would have bugged me that they were misaligned. I want them to look uniform, and I have made scarves where I didn't see the misalignment until I was all done. I'm not going to rip out the entire scarf. It's still a beautiful scarf. You can't really see the mistake, but I would know it was there. And in this case, I was very fortunate. I caught the mistake very close to where I was at right now. I only had to rip out 4 rows, which is only about 10 minutes worth of work. I had to redo the work, but I did it right. So it's worth mentioning, finish your row before you put your work down, so you don't pick it up and start going the wrong direction. So, back to where I am. I will come back when I'm at the middle of this scarf and show you how to do the center with the 20 rows of stockinette, and then flip into the 7th cross to begin the other direction of the other direction of the crosses as we progress to the other half of this scarf. God bless you. I'll come back to you later in a couple hours. Okay, I have reached the middle of the scarf. I completed the 6th cross, and then I knitted stockinette for 20 rows because I'm at the middle of the scarf. This is where the middle of the back of the neck will be. And then we're going to begin the 7th cross, which is the beginning of the process of reversing the next 6 crosses. So crosses number 7 through 12 will be in the other direction, opposite of these. So I'm starting row 1 of the 12 row cross, but it's in reverse now. And I'm getting ready to back cable on this braided cable. So we're just going to follow along with the pattern. Everything's the same except that the crosses are reversed now. So we're back cabling. We're going to do our 3 seed stitches, purl, knit, purl. And we'll do the first 3 stitches, which is knit, 1, 2, 3, purl 2. This is now the top of the cross instead of the bottom of the cross. This is the 7th cross. 1, 2, 3, knit, 3 seed stitches, purl, knit, purl. And the other side braided cable. Knit 2, the next 2 stitches go on the cable needle, flip behind, knit the next 2 stitches, and then knit the 2 stitches on the cabling needle to complete the cable. Purl the next stitch for the single column seed stitch column, and slip the last stitch over for the edging. Now we turn it over. We'll do the back side. We're going to knit this edging stitch, making that pretty loop on the edge like we showed before. Purl the next stitch. Purl the next 6 stitches, which is the back side of the cable. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The seed stitch, purl, knit, purl. Now remember, I'm going to stop for a moment. Not every scarf gets 3 seed stitches. You can make this wider and make it a 5 seed stitch. You can make it even wider and go 7 stitches. Whatever you do, do it on both sides of the cross panel. so that it's uniform. You can make it as wide as you want, or you can go even narrower. You don't even have to have 3 seed stitches. If you wanted to go narrow, like I do with my children's scarves and my toddler scarves, I don't do 3 seed stitches. I do only 1, and that's what we start with. Next to the edging, we have a column of 1 seed stitch. We can do the same thing on the other side of the cable, just 1 seed stitch, if you wish to do that. That will make your scarf narrower. Of course, you have to do that on the other side too. You want to make it uniform. Both sides should look alike. So, anyway, I'm going to keep proceeding. This is the back side of the cross panel, and that's purl 8. 1, 2, 3. Oop, we're at the cross. We don't want to purl across. We want to knit 2 stitches, which is the second row of the cross. It's the second row of the top of the cross. And then back to purling. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do the 3 seed stitches again. Purl, knit, purl. I just love this yarn. These yarns together, they feel wonderful. Okay, now we're going to purl 6 behind the cable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Purl 1 for the single column seed, and then slip that last stitch with the yarn on this side. Flip it over again. Now we're back on the front again. Now, this is the row, because we've reversed the crosses, so they're going in the other direction. This will begin the cross beam. So there's going to be purls all across these 6 stitches right here. That'll be the first of 2 rows of cross beam. So we're going to start like we usually do. Put our edging on. Purl 1 for the seed stitch column. We'll pick up the first 2 stitches on the cable needle, drop it down in the front, knit the next 2. 1, 2. Pick up the cable needle stitches and knit those 2. 1, 2. And then knit the last 2 in the cable. 1, 2. Then 3 seed stitches. Purl, knit, purl. Now we're going to start the cross beam. That means you only knit 1, and then you purl 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you knit the last stitch in that panel. And then you're back at your seed stitches on the other side. Purl, knit, purl. And your left side cable. Again, we're taking the first 2 stitches, putting them on the short end of the cabling needle, dropping it down in the front, knit the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then you pick up those stitches from the cabling needle and knit those 2 stitches. 1, 2. And the last 2 stitches of the cable. 1, 2, and then we purl that next to the last stitch for the column of seed stitches, and then we drop the yarn down front and slip that last stitch onto the needle. Okay, I'll flip it over again. Now we're on the back of the row that has the cross beam. So we have to complete the cross beam. Cross beam is 6 stitches across and 2 rows deep. So we're going to go ahead and begin this row, which is row 4 of 12. 1, okay, purl 1, purl 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, my yarn's getting tangled, 5, 6, then we have the seeds, purl, knit, purl, then we have a purl stitch beginning that panel for crosses, but just once. One stitch, and then we're going to knit across that crossbeam 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I know this might be confusing for anybody who might be reading or watching who is not an experienced knitter, but basically what it amounts to is your knit stitches are the opposite of purl stitches, and your purl stitches are the opposite of knit stitches. So if we knit on this side, we have purl on the other side. And if we purl on this side, we have knit on the other side. It's very uncomplicated. So we've done the 6 stitches for the crossbeam. We're going to finish the panel with a purl stitch. We're on the back side, so we're finishing with a purl stitch. And then we're going into our seed again. Purl, knit, purl. And then we're doing the cable. 1 in purls, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we're purling that column of seeds, which is just 1 stitch across, and then we're slipping that last stitch to prepare to flip over and do the edging again. Now, I'm not going to continue knitting here. This is where I'm going to stop on the, so I can talk a little bit on the video. Just for anyone who's thinking of learning how to knit and is watching this and trying to figure out what we're doing, all of your cables on this pattern anyway are consisting of nothing but knit stitches. You don't do anything but knit them. You're just crossing over them with your cable needle, and you're creating a braid on this one. This is a braided cable. Not all cables are braided, but mine are on this pattern. So I'm just showing you what we're doing. All of these things are done with 2 different stitches. It's really remarkable. You have knit and you have purl. And of course we have this edging on the edge, which really is still just a knit stitch. We're just doing a slip first before we knit it. There's nothing complicated about this. It looks like it's very hard to do, but it really isn't. And I know any experienced knitters that are watching this will be able to see how easy this is. You don't have a pattern written down. I did not do that because we have so many versions of this scarf for toddlers, for children, for different sizes of crosses, for a lot of ways we tweak this pattern in order to accomplish whatever we want to accomplish in terms of size and shape and length. It would involve probably a dozen or more different pattern tweaks. I don't have the time to write all that down. I also am not good at writing a pattern. That's why I decided to do this tutorial video, so you could see how to do this, and you could see it's obviously a lot of repetition. A lot of repetition. So essentially, the rest of this scarf is in reverse of the first half of this scarf. This is the top half of the 7th cross, which is the beginning of the second half of the scarf, and there are now 8 more rows to do, and we've already done the cross beam, so now you have 8 rows of the main body of the cross to do, which is all purl. That's all purl. It's knit on the other side, but it shows up as purl on the front. And then you go back to your distance between the crosses of 14 rows of stockinette. Your cables keep going. your seeds keep going. They don't change. You just keep continuing those patterns while you build your crosses into this panel of stockinettes. So after you do these next 8 rows of the bottom of the cross on this 7th cross, then you stop adding to the cross and you begin a 14-row stretch of stockinette. And you do that between the next several crosses until you get to the 12th cross, and then you do your 12th cross just like all the others from 7 to 12. They're all the same. And then you finish the scarf the same way you end it. So after the bottom of the 12th cross, which looks like the top of the cross way up here, you will do 6 rows of stockinette and end with 4 rows of double rib, and then you'll cast off. And then we take this tail yarn and weave it in on the back side so it's hidden on the back, and you do that on both ends. And that's basically the whole scarf. It looks a lot harder than it is, but if you watch this video, you should be able to figure it out if you're an experienced knitter. There's 3 components, and there's 3 kinds of knitting going on here. You've got purl against stockinette, you've got seed stitches, and you've got cables. That's the whole scarf. You just need to know how to count 30 stitches and cast them on, how to do your double ribbing at the very beginning. And in retrospect, I wish I had done 6 rows of double ribbing instead of 4, but I've already done this, so the other side will do the same. But in my future scarves, I will have 6 rows of double ribbing. And I don't even need to change needle size anywhere. I had been doing that when I was putting fringe on, but when you're doing a rib or a double rib, it brings this in a little tighter at the end. It'll stretch out eventually, but there's no need to change needle size. It still looks uniform and pretty and finished regardless. So I did this entire scarf, or will have done this entire scarf, on a size 10.5 needle with these 2 yarns wrapped together. So I really am happy you stayed with me so long on this video. And again, feel free to leave any questions in the comments after the video is posted online. I'm planning to post this both on my YouTube channel and on my Rumble channel, so there's more ways to view it. And again, thank you for your attention to this, and I hope you will want to learn how to make these based on what I just showed you. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask, and I hope I can answer them for you. Again, I'm not a professional knitter, but I am very good at this scarf. I've made more than 700 of these now, and I'd be happy to talk with you online. Thank you for your attention, and God bless you. And I hope you're able to share Jesus with your family and friends in this very, very special way. Take care now.